Oh my god, you're already recording me. Oh no, wait, Charlie shouldn't be in this.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm talking too much.
Well, you guys went off and left me with this high tech stuff. I'm old school. Dollar down, dollar a week, and keep running.
Yeah.
So, my name is Aldo Esparza. I served in the U.S. Army as an infantryman from June 2006 till October 2010. I was stationed at Fort Wainwright, Alaska, and I deployed to Iraq for 1 year from 2008 to 2009.
So for security reasons, I won't tell you my real name. I was a chief warrant officer, which is a specialty rank, and most people just call me chief. So we'll leave it at that for now. But I joined in 1976, and my first tour was in Berlin, behind the wall, behind the Iron Curtain. Yeah, been a long time.
I served in the United States Marine Corps in First Light Armor Reconnaissance. At the time I joined, I was a private, and I ended up leaving as a corporal. And a month after I got out, I was a ranked sergeant. But to me, I feel like I was still a corporal. But I ended up being a platoon sergeant at a very young age, which was very rare. So that's something that I hold near and dear to me, because that's something I accomplished. So I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2011 to 2012 for 8 months, and
Right out of high school, I graduated in 1961, before you were born. And I and a buddy decided to run away from the farm and join the Army. And I saw a poster on the wall at the recruiting station with parachutists, and I decided to enlist in the Army as airborne hero.
Okay, I served from 1958 through 1962, almost 63. And the rank was Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. And, what do you say, 3rd Battalion?
I joined up right out of high school in 1991. I joined the Marine Corps Reserve as a heavy equipment operator. I did 6 years of active reserve status, 2 years inactive, and I re-enlisted as a Navy corpsman and spent 3 years with the Marine Corps Light Armor and Reconnaissance Battalion out of Camp Pendleton, and then I switched right after 9/11, was with Naval Coastal Warfare Group 1 and inshore boat unit. We deployed in December of '02 to Kuwait. Our job was anti-terrorism force protection.
I think it ranges a lot for people. Some people really want the structure. There's a lot of benefits they can get. It's like really good education. There's a lot of like lifetime services you can get. Other people want it to get away from stuff, get away from towns. And some people want to just be patriotic, serve their country, protect people.
For a number of reasons. One is to escape a family situation, another is for the financial benefit, another is for any other benefit that comes with it, such as education. Another might be to avoid going on in the traditional kind of academic route that we go in the United States. Others are moved to serve. You know, there's a surge after 9/11, people wanting to join and defend the country. So I think there are a number of reasons to join.
Either they really love our country, or because I think it gives them some sense of purpose or meaning, especially because, like, one, you're serving your country, and two, because like the bonds you form in the military, it's like something really special.
I think a deep sense of patriotism plays in for some folks. Also, I get the sense that there's a desire for community and purpose that I think military service provides. You're in this community of people working towards something, and that's powerful.
You were young and your heart run away from home. Growing up on the farm is it's a hard life, and I thought the military would be more fun. And I used to read, comic books about G.I. Joe, and so I had this vision of heroes. And
I was raised Catholic, and I was doing my confirmation leading up to when I was joining the military, and I was told by my parents and other members of the church that being gay was wrong and that you would go to hell if you're gay, and I thought that I was doing everything that I could in order to live, I guess, the ideal life, but I couldn't get away from these thoughts that, I guess identified me as gay. So I thought that by joining the military, that would help me solidify that masculinity and help me, come into that realization that I wasn't gay.
I had a pretty hard childhood. We were really poor, and I lived in upstate New York where the winters were really harsh. So by the time I was a junior in high school, I was living in the woods and sleeping in a tent and eating squirrels and playing Grizzly Adams. But I was predisposed with embassy takedowns and hostage rescues and all the intelligence stuff that we do for missions like that because of what I lived like, what my childhood was like. I knew what it felt like to be kept down and beaten and abused, and it built a fire in my gut that made me want to go help other people in that situation.
Well, a combination of things. At that time, 58, jobs were a little shaky. Went down originally to join up with the Air Force. Just so happened the guy wasn't in the office at the time, but the Marine Corps guy was there with his brown bag and his lunch. And he said, "Come on in, young man. Got a deal you can't turn down."
That and the fact that it was a small town, no business, no jobs, and pretty much the only thing to do that would get you out of there was join the military. And I was on the first plane out as soon as I could get out.
I came home with my military uniform and had to show everybody that I had accomplished something big. I had been in the Army.
To me, when you say what's a veteran, I think this is somebody who has served in the military and is no longer active duty. And forgive me if that's wrong, but that's kind of the understanding I have gathered.
A lot of my direct encounters and my direct experience were with folks who are struggling in a lot of ways, struggling with addiction, struggling with PTSD and mental health issues, struggling with accessing basic resources in terms of housing and healthcare. But I have images of tremendous courage and service, and think of people who make sacrifices in the name of service, in the name of something noble.
When I think of the word veteran, I think of sacrifice. I mean, the root meaning of sacrifice, it means to make sacred. And so that's what veterans do with their lives when they go into it. It's a real serious deal, whether I think they're aware of that intellectually or not. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
I think of a hero. I think of someone who gave a lot of time, and someone who is selfless.
Like an old man, but dignified. You know, those like little old men that have the hats.
Yeah, just someone who's been super courageous and strong.
But the image that popped into my head is like an old World War II veteran or something. It's like an old dude with a hat and a flag, and that's inaccurate. That's what I think of.
I just think of someone who served in the military for a really long time, because like when I think of a veteran, I just like think of someone who's old and like wears like the hats and everything.
When I hear the word veteran, I think of different things, because a veteran can be someone that served in the military, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a war veteran. And if they're a war veteran, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're an infantry war veteran. I just think of my friends and who I served with.
When I hear the word veteran, I immediately flash back to the old guys with the funny hats that were marching down the streets in the 4th of July parades and Veterans Day parades. They were the World War II guys that came home, and later the Vietnam veterans that came home. So it's someone else. It's not me. You know, I'm just another soldier. So yeah, it's weird to think that I'm a veteran, and I'm one of those old guys with a funny hat now.
To be honest, when I hear the word veteran, I just think of somebody really old, because it's very rare to see someone come back who's very young. I'm only 25 years old. I came back when I was 20, so it's very, very rare. So to me, I think of old people.
There's a concept of outside the wire and behind the wire. And so vets, I always give a great deal of credit to, just for the service. But a combat vet, or a vet that has served in a unit that does duty outside the wire, combat vet. The guys that get in the trenches and shoot bullets at people and get shot at, they're a whole different breed.
To me, a veteran was always, as a kid, that guy in the parade, the VFW guys, the World War II vets. My grandfather was a World War II vet, served in the Navy. That's what a veteran was. It's hard saying I'm a veteran, picturing myself in their shoes. It's just not something I've ever really done.
It's a club, as far as I'm concerned, or an organization that once you've been there and been with the group, and you go through some times with these guys, it's a group, and if you've never done it, it's hard to explain. You say once a Marine, always a Marine, and that's just about true.
So when you speak of a veteran, it could be somebody who really saw some shit, or it could be somebody who has been in a training center or a service command that never got outside the wire, never got shot at, never felt like his life was threatened.
A lot of people, I think, perceive veterans as downtrodden, worse off, not welcomed home, and I think a lot of that can be true. But at the same time, too, I see in veterans a great deal of honor and pride for having served, and I don't think those of us who have not been in the military or have not had family who are military, I don't think we recognize the sacrifices they've made.
It's even when you get out and you're discharged and you go about your merry way and have your own life you have to live, You get married, you move on, you go here, you go there. They do the same thing. But all you need is one of them to give you a call. I have a buddy up in Sacramento now, and he's sort of a little beat up, a little shell shock, and he doesn't take his meds all the time. Well, his wife calls up and says, "Hey, he's getting a little crazy now." So we take a ride up there, a buddy of mine. We go up there and give him hell and get him back on his meds, and he's good to go. And I don't think that would happen anywhere else if you were involved with another group of people. It just wouldn't happen,
All vets, whether they were behind the wire or in front of it, have a sense of honor and self-worth that I think people of similar age, culture, what have you, don't have. I think vets have had a hard look inside themselves and what they're made of. They've been tested, and across the board, I see that whether they've seen combat or been in tough spots or not, they have a sense of honor that you don't see in normal people. Often, there's a character quality in a vet that you don't see in the average person.
I mean, I know, well, I'm still trying to figure out who I am personally, but I mean, I've seen veterans I came back with and veterans before me and veterans after me. We're all a little bit different in our own ways, but much the same. I think one word that's really big right now, especially in my life, is loneliness for veterans. It's more of like a mental state, if you will, even though we're not really alone. Loneliness definitely for veterans, but at the same time, a lot of pride and arrogance in any branch, that is.
The biggest one is honor. There's not every veteran has been to war. Not every veteran put in as much time as the next guy. Didn't have the same job. So there's a bunch of parts that move. But the commonality is self-discipline and respect and sacrifice, self-service, all those things. Honor. Yeah.
Well, like I said earlier, I already thought that the Army would fix me. And that was wrong because, I mean, I think a lot of people go into the military with that expectation that if they're going through an issue at home, like say a drug addiction, that just joining the military would automatically fix that wrong, which it doesn't. If anything, it kind of makes it a lot more, I guess, makes you want to do it more. If anything, if it's putting you in a lot more stressful situation.
Oh, I was going to be a hero.
I always thought it was going to be bad food, no sleeping and stuff like that, and I was completely right. But there's times where you get good food, and when I mean good food, I mean something that's actually cooked all the way through. So, but expectation-wise, man, I thought it was going to be super hard, like physically. I joined the infantry. Specifically, my unit was the forward advance in the Marine Corps. Like we all reconnaissance is the first people there. So it was a lot more late nights, a lot more physical activities, a lot more drowning in water. So my expectations were just like climbing hills a lot. So when I got in, it was more than just climbing hills.
In Indian cultures, there's a tradition where boys become men. In the military, training like airborne training or any kind of special combat training that you go through, there's a transition and that's when the boy stops being a boy and starts being a man, and all the implications that go with that.
I was raised on John Wayne movies and World War II movies and all the heroics and all the drama, I guess, that sucks you in.
No, because you have to remember at the time I went in, it was at a time when got out of high school, graduated. You either had to have a trade or you went into work with some big organization, state or federal. And if you didn't have that, you were sort of in a limbo state until you could. Well, the service to me, I didn't originally look at it like that. I was thinking, hey, I've got to get a job. That was the basis behind it when we went down there to sign up. Get off the street, don't get in any trouble.
My combat was really short. I was in a hot zone for a couple of months. I was in a firefight for about 8 minutes. Okay, that has twisted my whole life. The expectation and the reality came into conflict when I think that we got put in a hot zone on the ocean border. And, we were peacetime soldiers, but we saw a lot of shit. In our training exercise in Taiwan, we killed 3 or 4 civilians. One of them was a young girl, and I had to police up her body with a couple of my comrades. She got caught, a bouncing Betty landmine caught her at the base of the skull, took her head off, and we had to pick up body parts. And I was collecting brain pieces and sticking them in a hat. That isn't what I thought the military was all about from a comic book,
No, they were so far off. You can't explain it until you're standing there, until you're standing in the yellow footprints at MCRD, you can't even fathom what it's like. The yellow footprints are when you first get off the bus. San Diego, there's a set of footprints they tell you to stand in, and that's when your world changes. Everything that you had thought and, it maybe anticipated goes out the door at that time, and there's somebody yelling and screaming at you, and that's when reality sets in and you start asking yourself, what the hell did I do?
Yes, the expectations were there that I thought, but then there was even more.
What was that?
Loss of friends that I didn't realize that would happen to me. Family struggles, friend struggles, trying to be in the right mindset personally to support your buddy to your left and to your right, to make sure that they're in the right mindset. It's never about you. The expectation was never about you. It's always about someone else. And to me, it always will be someone else.
Your mentality changes from what you've grown up with and what you think the world is to the masses of humanity, and then you find this brotherhood of soldiers of different nationalities and different backgrounds and different religions, and then you go to some place across the country, across the world, and you're all the same brotherhood. You're all there for the same reason. So the differences all go away, and now we're just part of the big green machine. And then we come home and we split up again, and then you see how society is split by racial and religious lines, and it just doesn't make any sense anymore. So the reality of what happened after I went into the military compared to what I thought the military was like is night and day. Totally night and day difference.
That's really what I wanted. just wanted to experience new things in life. I didn't know that I was going to have to do the things I had to do. I didn't know that deployment isn't like the movies, that there's a lot more of standing around and waiting, a lot more just looking at dirt. Once I got married and realized, oh crap, a kid's coming, then you realize now I have to do everything right to be safe for myself, but at the same time have that mindset to protect everyone else. So the perception changed very fast. So it was to gung-ho to how do I survive?
My personal reaction was, fucking what? Finally. You know, we're actually going to go do this thing.
So I was excited because as an infantryman, you train to go to war. So you're not doing your job unless you're at war. So when we were given the orders to go, I was really excited because I felt like I could finally do what I was training to do. It's 2 years, and I don't know, call me naive, but I was looking forward to it. You know, I didn't expect anything to change with the group I was going with. I was really excited. I couldn't wait. I thought that I was doing the right thing. I thought that I was finally going to be able to, just go over there and kill the bad guys. Honestly, everyone questioned why we were there, and perhaps during the invasion there was more of a clear picture of our spreading democracy. But while I was there, we were basically getting shot at and then having bombs planted on the road and us running them over. So there wasn't the clear enemy. So
it depended on the mission, because some of the ones we went on were stupid, point blank. They were just political stupidity. And then there's other missions. Liberia, you go into an embassy that's about to be overrun by a civil war, and you get people out, and you come home and you're like, phew, just barely made it out, but at least everybody's alive. And you did something that was worth doing. But then we go into Mogadishu, and it's a humanitarian mission that turns sideways, and we lose a bunch of guys, and it's a bad hair day like you can't believe. And nothing changed in Somalia when we left. It's even worse now with Boko Haram and all the rest of them.
We deployed, in December of 2002, so we were still, 9/11 was still fresh in our memories. This was payback. It was different. It was all the amenities we have here of, hey, I want coffee in the morning. Everything revolved around our watch schedule. And we were initially assigned to an Army base, and there were some challenges between the services.
So there was a long time frame where nothing was happening. I knew differently from the intelligence world that a lot of things were happening. We just weren't in a war. And then Desert Storm hit. And now we're really going to war. This wasn't just covert insurgency or any of that. This was real combat with tanks lined up and armor and artillery and airstrikes and the whole shebang. This was Armageddon. So when we went to this big armor thing in Desert Storm, everybody back here thought it was just a video game. It was aircraft popping targets and watching it on TV. Nobody understood that there was a 3,000 tank battle going on, and guys were dying left and right. We didn't lose a single tank, but we were popping them left and right. So coming out of Desert Storm, you had to shake your head a little bit and go, damn, this is way different, way bigger. So all the 90s were these small conflicts again. We started up with this big monstrous Desert Storm, and then went to all these small little conflicts in places that nobody could find on a map. And come home and find out nobody knew we were there, because American society went on without us. And They don't know what happened in Bosnia. They don't care what happened in Zaire or Rwanda. These are places that nobody, who cares?
In one sense, there's tremendous pride and value. The notion of service, of commitment, of courage, of defending one's country, the ethos of American identity and history is deeply tied with military identity, for better or worse. And so I think there's a tremendous value placed on the individual persons and the collective persons that make that up. I think sometimes the military decisions that are made, there are concerns about people's lives being put at risk. And so how does our value translate in terms of putting people's lives at risk in ways that may or may not be necessary, whatever we mean by necessary? I know that's a complex question. So I think there's that tension. There's a deep respect, there's a deep value, but there's also some practical realities about how that value plays out that operate in tension with that.
It's hard. I think my instinct is to say it's not necessarily as individuals, more as a resource. They are part of this big machine that is, for a purpose, and a soldier is trained to be a member of a larger group. So I think that's generally how they view them. But on the other hand, you often see a lot of these services and stuff, like the cookies for soldiers and all these, really nice projects that it might not be the military necessarily, but are individuals being treated well. So
we were just a butt in the seat. They, the unit and the guys you're serving with care about you, but the command cares about the mission, and the hierarchy. You're somebody there to fulfill the mission. You're expendable. You're a number to them. Once you get past the unit, the platoon, maybe the company level, you're a number. They don't know your name.
You're in a fight to take care of we're all in this together. And even our officers were not part of the team. Okay? Our officers and leaders are really remote from us. Mm-hmm. We were the guys out there. And we were totally expendable. It was ingrained into us as an airborne unit that our in fact, the title for the 504 was strike hold. That meant you went out there, you took a position, and you held it as long as you could, long enough to be relieved, long enough to carry out the mission. You were totally expendable. The idea, dead man walking, that's what it's all about. Yep. We were all dead. Yep. It was a question when it was going to happen.
So I can go back and pull a box out of the closet and show you a stack of papers that says I'm Superman and he's an outstanding soldier. And there's a pile of medals that are just trinkets that they give you. Those are from my brothers that were close enough to know me as a human. But as the military overall, I was just expendable. Because as soon as you're gone, that's a hard lesson to learn when you get hurt. Because you're an important part of the program, and you think you're replaceable because you're in a leadership position and all that, and then boom, changes in 30 seconds. And the harsh reality is they never missed a beat. They never skipped a beat. You got hurt, you're gone, you lost both your legs. Sorry about that. Next.
When you're in, I think as a lower rank, it's all like they don't care about you kind of thing. Like they're higher ups, they get to do whatever they want. But like I said before, if you take your job seriously, then you kind of see the bigger picture. They care about you. They really care. No one wants to lose anybody. In the beginning, the perception was you're just a number. That's all you are is a number. You're expendable. And then in reality, once you get closer to those people and closer to higher ups and stop like being in your little cocoon and like branch out, you realize the military actually does care about you and cares about your mindset and what's happening to you and what's happening to your unit and your friends.
Booze and whores. We live for the weekend.
Honestly, it's the shitty times. Because those shitty times turn into really good times. I went during the winter time and ended up leaving in the summertime, so I had both the winter and the heat. But I was there during Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of that. And for me, I come from a really strong family who loves being together, so being away for a holiday was really, really stressful for me. But being with those core guys, it's the best friends you'll ever make in your entire life. So we had no electricity, no nothing, so just flashlights, headlamps, and making your own Christmas carols, waking up in the morning and actually getting some decent food. It's those shitty times that kept me going because they ended up being good times.
You do what you have to do. Our tour was 18 months, and that seemed like a lifetime. But it was a great adventure, and we really look forward to getting off island. Sometimes boredom would sit in. We had, I was in a place where there was a lot of Marines. There were a heck of a lot more Marines than there were airborne troops. So inter-service rivalries. There's parts of town, and when we get bored, we'd rent horses and ride them into the Marines' bars, and the trick was to see whether we could make it all the way to the bar and get a drink before some Marine pulled us off our horse and beat the shit out of us. It was a great adventure, but we all were adrenaline junkies. That was part of the world.
So, during my deployment is when I finally came to realization that I was gay. So, it led up to this like cathartic moment that, it was just that. After that, I just realized that I was finally happy with who I was, and I wanted to like let everyone finally get to know me for who I was. And I felt that if I died in Iraq, like nobody would have known who I really was. Everyone had dealt with someone I wanted them to know, and I never really let them know who I was. So that kept me going because I wanted to see my friends and family again, and I wanted to go back home to living in the Bay Area after being stuck in Alaska for 3 years and Iraq for 1.
Then the transition it's not about honor for the fight, for the military, it's honor for your comrades,
right?
your battle buddies. There are no heroes. There are no heroes, and you just do the best you can to try to stay alive and keep your buddy alive.
And they didn't do it just for the money, because trust me, there's no money in this. It's about what's in your heart and your brother next to you. And when you come back after all those years of doing that stuff, and you look at the American society as it is today, you go, what the hell happened while I was gone?
Yes, if I could go back, I would probably not have joined the military. I would have not hung out with the people I was hanging out with, and I would have just graduated high school and went to college and taken out loans, because I think that 4 years of serving in the military during a time of war was not worth it.
Wouldn't change a damn thing. You probably watched the movie Fury. Best job I ever had. It's the best job I ever had.
Yeah, I wouldn't get hurt. That's about the only thing I'd change. I learned a lot. I taught a lot of guys a lot of stuff, a lot of life lessons, and it made me who I am today. Would I go back and change anything? No. Just the part where I got hurt. Because I wasn't ready to quit.
It seems that soldiers make tremendous sacrifices, particularly folks who are in combat zones, traveling abroad, distance from family.
Obviously their life, because they're putting their lives on the line for us every single day. And also their families too, because obviously you really love your family, but you're going out there and risking your life and just for your country.
I think soldiers sacrifice their mental health. I think when you become a soldier, you sacrifice, it's a significant part of your life, and it's usually like you become a soldier when you're a young man, so it's like that period of your life you kind of never get back. And obviously their life is on the line, so that's a sacrifice in itself, because you don't know if it's gonna go good or bad.
There's the obvious, you endanger yourself, your life. You also give up a large portion of time, and you're away from your family and friends and home. Also, there can be a lot of long-lasting effects, like the PTSD or any of the psychological damage. You get injured, you can have that last the rest of your life.
They sacrifice a personal life, a personal individual life. There's a toll on the families, I know. They suffer physically and mentally as a result of what they have been asked to do and what they engage in doing as part of their duty. I think the toll on families or on the military is emotional and physical and financial, social even, right? Because when veterans come back, they're often shunned for having done what they've done.
My body, for one. I'm not injured or anything like that, but it's very physically demanding when you're in the infantry. I can't really talk on the what we call the POG side of it, personnel other than grunt, because I've never done it. But my body's always tired, so I feel like that's a sacrifice, and even though people are like, oh, get over it, it's like, I am. Mentally, mentally, it's a sacrifice. Emotionally, it's a sacrifice. I think that's the biggest two right there, is emotionally and mentally, it's like the biggest sacrifice.
I don't see it as sacrifices. It was a decision to join. I volunteered. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. I joined the Navy Reserve, and then prior to deploying, when the unit got the phone call and we started in processing, they realized that my enlistment was going to be over within 2 or 3 months. So I had to re-enlist to actually deploy overseas. And I don't see it as a sacrifice. It was, my teammates needed me, my friends needed me. It was the job. It's what, we signed on to do.
And I don't think there's any sacrifice that I've committed because it was a job. It was what I did. And just because I got hurt and the consequences of that doesn't mean that I look at it any different. Sacrifice is something other people do. You never feel like you've done enough. Because even when you're hurt, you want to go back. Or you don't want to even leave to begin with. You feel violated that the command structure says, look, you're broke, you need to go get fixed, come back when you're ready. Why would you kick me out now? You know, I'm part of the team. So you never feel like you did enough, and sacrifice is not something, those aren't the terms we think in, if that makes any sense.
You know, I used to think in terms of being behind. You know, I was in college with 18-year-olds, and I was 23. And so the military, in my mind, it's at that time, stole 3 years out of my life. First started college, and I was dealing with a bunch of young guys and young women. Hadn't done what I'd done, hadn't spent the time in the military. I felt like I'd been robbed of 3 years. Now I have a whole different perspective of that.
When you go into the service, you sort of give up 2 to 3 years of your life because you're out and about. But what you don't understand in the long haul, those 2 or 3 years that you supposedly give up, it's a growing period. You wouldn't have gotten it at home, living with mom and dad. You get out there, you go into another part of the world, you say, hey, I didn't even know this existed out here. 90% of the people, they're raised in an area, they grew up in an area, they go to school in the same area, they get out and they get a 9 to 5 in the same area. They have no idea what's going on across the street. And once you get into the service, you travel a little bit, you get into another country, lifestyles are different. All these things, it's called, getting your feet on the ground, growing up a little bit, seeing that there's another world out there. And once you find that out, you say, whoa, wait a minute, there's bigger and better things down the highway. I don't have to go work over here at McDonald's for the next 30 years.
Close the door, put out the light.
I've realized how spoiled we are as a country, as a society. When you go over to a third world country, into a war zone, you see the worst mankind has to offer. And then you come back here and people here have no idea what it's like over there. They have no idea. What do you mean I can't go to a Starbucks? What do you mean I can't go to Walmart? What do you mean I don't know where my next meal is coming from? So to see our folks just throwing stuff away and see somebody else that was just happy to have that really put things into perspective.
How's my world changed? What would I be today if I hadn't gone into the Army and done all these dumb shit things? I doubt if I would have accomplished half the stuff that I've accomplished. I didn't fit in, and I accepted that, and I still don't fit in, even today. But I have fun with it.
Because until you sit down and look in the mirror, you don't think you've changed at all. But I was an artist and a musician and a poet and all those kinds of things, and my dad beat the shit out of me because he was afraid I was going to grow up to be a homosexual. So I still play 12-string guitar, and I still write music, and I still do some sculpture work and artwork, but I'm a totally different person because I went from being innocent to jumping in the garbage disposal and getting chewed up. Everything changed. When you look at evil in the face and you witness the miserable things that humans do to each other, it rips your soul apart. It changes everything. It's night and day difference. And then you come back from all that and have to try to refit back into the place you left. And sometimes it's totally impossible.
When somebody says, how are you doing, Bob? And my response is, I'm vertical. To me, that means everything. I don't think people understand what that means to me. That means that I am not going to be alive if I'm not vertical. My attitude is, I'm going to live my life doing things, And when I get to a point where I can't do something, where I have to lay down, I'm going to be dead.
It goes in, for me, I know how I changed. For everyone around me, they see it a little bit differently. I know I changed my mindset, matured a lot. A lot of people would say around me that I'm still immature. I still like to joke around and stuff like that. But definitely matured a lot, and I have a bigger understanding of people's opinions on like government, foreign wars, all these things. Religion, for example, I have like so much more open-minded to it, but I'm still setting my own beliefs as well. So I've changed in that way for sure, but coming back from deployment, I changed in a way of being very skeptical of people around me and wondering what they're doing and why they're doing it. Coming back from the military in general, it's still a process, man.
I wasn't me when I got into that firefight.
Right.
The first, it's not a natural thing to put 3 bullets into a man's chest.
Right.
Okay? To consciously go out and kill somebody is not something that you do lightly. It's not natural, but it was really easy.
Yeah, that's the scary part. It's so easy.
It was really easy.
Very hard. The biggest thing I see right now in civilian life is that civilians will come at you expecting you to be a certain way as a veteran. And the ways that I've seen it has been, you're a veteran, you need to be crazy and out of your mind and an alcoholic. Sad, lonely. You're a veteran, you need to be sad, lonely, and alcoholic, out of your mind, PTSD, homeless. You're a veteran who's made it back. You have PTSD, but you still need to be strong for everybody around you. You're a veteran. You don't have PTSD, so you should do everything I tell you to because you are a veteran and you're used to taking orders. These are all the things I've seen. And I think it really messes with a person's mind. And, me struggling with that personally, sometimes I don't want to speak on the whole veteran community, but me as a veteran, I just want people to let me be me, kind of thing. And I don't have PTSD, wasn't diagnosed with it. The only things that make me sad are things that I've done, people that I've lost, and what I've lost now. That's what bothers me, but with most people, they expect me to be a certain way, and it's never the same way for everybody.
It was different. I remember the first day back, we flew into North Island Naval Air Station and had a great welcoming. All the families were there. My wife, my kid, my parents were there, so we stayed at a hotel. And I remember waking up the next morning and my dad saying, "Hey, let's go get coffee." And we, walked down the street to the Starbucks, and it was different because I was used to not having that, but I realized life didn't stop for everybody else, where it had stopped for me that December day in 2002 when I deployed, and I got activated on my son's 2nd birthday. I left to Dada, I came home to Daddy. I realized there's a time period in my life that's missing, that everybody stateside, they just kept doing what they do, and their day job and their life continued, and mine stopped. So it was hard to realize that and adjust back to that. Things at work that people would get spun up about, this and the boss did this or that, and you're like, really? That's all you have to worry about today?
When you get back into the so-called real world, you really start to see it's not as real as people claim it to be, I came back, and I think the one thing that I saw was, I remember coming home and I run into some people that I knew, and they were still doing the same things they were doing when I left 4 years ago. And I said, "Hey, what's wrong with this picture, You got to progress a little bit, grow a little bit, do some other things. Whatever your niche is, get into it, be the best you can be, and keep trucking.
I call it the square peg in the round hole syndrome, and I hear a lot from wives and kids that say he's not the same guy that left here, and he came back different, and he's not the man that I married. Everybody's got their own story, their own incident downrange, their own whatever, and they come home and think that everything's okay, and it's not. So sometimes they just pick up right where they left off. It depends on how conscious you are. It depends on if you're in denial deep enough. Some guys end up drinking and doing drugs and whatever, and other guys shoot themselves. So coming home is hard because you don't think there's anything different because you're still you. But everybody else looks at you like, holy hell, what happened to this guy? This guy's a Martian now. Square peg, round hole, all of that. And when you go into a village and find women and children buried alive by some moron who thought it was just really funny to listen to him scream. Or you go into Panama and find a guy chained to a wall upside down with a baseball bat in his rectum because they thought it was really cool to listen to him scream. Or Uday and Qusay Hussein had these rage parties where they would peel skin off people with a pair of pliers just to videotape and make bets on how long they could stay conscious. Those are the kinds of things people do to each other that when you come home and you're sitting around the Christmas table or Thanksgiving and nobody gets it, and then you smell something or something happens and it triggers something in your brain and you're right back there. Now you're the weird guy in the room and nobody gets it. And then you get injured and you lose a bunch of people and you come home busted up. And the lip service is there that thank you for your service, but they have no idea what you actually did. So everything changed from what I thought the military was to where we are now. Completely different things.
I never did. When I got off the boat at Oakland, we were met by a crowd. Vietnam was really serious, and they were, we had to walk down this gangplank onto the pier, and there were people over there behind these barricades, and they weren't there to say hello, God, welcome home. They were throwing shit at us. The world changed. It was Berkeley, and it was peace and love, and the vets were parasites. They were baby killers.
Coming back was one of the most difficult times of my life. I think that really showed me the deepest of my lows. And I didn't have family support, so I was living without electricity for a long time, and it just sucked. And yeah, there were a few times I just didn't know what to do. I honestly had to go to the VA in tears. I just didn't know what to do. Like, I had ideas of what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to go in that direction because that's another reality that's very real within the veteran community, and I didn't want to even entertain that thought. So if it wasn't for the VA, I probably would have be at the bottom of the bay right now.
I think it's a very respectful thing to say to like a veteran. I think it's acknowledging that sacrifice that they've made, but it's kind of like a general thing. It could be whatever stuff they had to go through. You're acknowledging that. I also think it ties like their service directly to kind of nationalism and like a patriotic duty, and whether or not that's what that person like was in the military for or not, so it kind of puts that label on it. I think people say it because they're kind of in awe of veterans. Like, a normal civilian has no idea what those people go through, and it's kind of a like, whoa, thanks.
Well, because they have some appreciation of what you did, but not a lot of deep understanding.
Thank you for serving feels wholesome. Thank you for giving your time, giving your life for my freedom. And so I think that people say it because it feels genuine.
I'm a little conflicted about it because like, it is a good way to just encompass, like, you know, thank you. It is a big service that these people are doing, and it's very important. But it seems like it's almost become a thing where it's like, you know, people don't really know what to say to soldiers or to veterans, so they just say thank you for your service, and then that's it. It's almost like, you know, I'm sorry for your loss or something. It's a way to remove yourself. So I think it's a good sentiment, but people need to kind of get over the barrier, the like kind of stigma of talking to soldiers about what their experience is like and see them as real people.
So I think the phrase "thank you for your service" is really impersonal, and it's very like cold and distant. It doesn't convey like the amount of thanks our country has for our soldiers, like, who put all this time and energy and strength and courage, just putting their lives out for us and sacrificing everything for us. It just feels so insincere and impersonal, and honestly I really hate it because it just doesn't convey how thankful we are as a country.
It's one of those mixed emotions where I'm just very angry, but at the same time I know I can't be. Like, I'm very like happy there's people out there that support it, and there's people that aren't, you know. But it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of people forget. It's like, don't thank me, thank the ones who actually gave up their life, the ones that didn't come back, because that's a sacrifice, you know. I'm not saying that like it would have been the greatest honor to die out there or something. I'm just saying, like, I think we just forget the people that don't come back, except for those families and friends, you know.
That's offensive. And every guy I know thinks it's offensive. It's a sanitary response from people who have no idea what to say to you. They've been told they need to say something because veterans are heroes. Not every veteran is a hero. Not every veteran is actually deployed. Not every veteran that deployed saw combat. So I don't know who came up with that term. My question back to him is, why don't you just say welcome home? Because it's at least welcoming, not stay the fuck away from me, I don't want to talk to you. You know, because that's what it means to us. You know, thank you for your service. What exactly does that mean? And for guys that got into a bad situation and ended up killing kids and women, or made a mistake and shot their own guys, thank you for your service. Whew. How do you handle that? You know, what does it actually mean? It means, okay, yeah, you're a veteran and they told me I'm supposed to be nice to you, so, but they don't really want to know.
I don't necessarily think that I should be thanked for a lot of the things that I had to do while being deployed in Iraq, and also while serving in the military in garrison. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of, I guess, shady things that one has to undergo while being in war, and also just being in the military, that aren't necessarily looked at in the civilian world, or would be looked at really negatively. And yeah, civilians aren't necessarily subjected to that type of behavior. So so I don't always take it. I'm grateful for people for when they say it. I don't give them a cold shoulder. I don't give them any negative response. But it makes me think of the past and my friends, those that aren't here, and yeah.
So you go from Superman to a junkie in a wheelchair, and nobody wants to be around you. And then, how do you function in a day? You got to have somebody there. You got to have some kind of support.
You have to let go of the military, but always keep it part of you. Like around my job, when things get serious, I'm always called Corporal Hopkin, because they know that I'll get stuff done. They know what I'm about, and I don't take that bull crap, like I just do it. Can't say gay stuff anymore, like, because all people take that weird. In the military, you're just with a bunch of guys or a bunch of girls, so you just say weird things. I can't make penis jokes anymore. I can't talk about like cuddling with dudes. People just take it differently. I can't say morbid things anymore, which has changed, and it's hard. That's hard. It really is. The things I eat are different now, and then like exercise is different, and just downtime is always the worst, man. Like being alone is always the worst, because you got to get out of your mind, because if you start being alone more often, nothing will ever change. So everything has changed for me in daily life. Everything.
Daily life is very structured. I would wake up, at still 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, ready to start my day. I had issues leaving my house a lot of the times. I think I was used to the security of living in the barracks, because sometimes leaving my house would take half an hour, 45 minutes, because I couldn't remember if I locked my door, and I would have to go back and redo the same steps over and over, and any little sound would set me off, and I would just be on security mode, wondering what was going on, and that was interesting. Driving was difficult. A lot of my past experiences of driving around Iraq or driving around pulling security, even in garrison, just being drilled by my superiors to always be looking out, pulling security, and looking out for odd things that stood out. I couldn't focus on the road, or I hate saying this, but even driving around Arabic people would freak me out. And yeah, I don't drive to this day because of that. I would rather just not really deal with, whatever.
You come back here and listen to people bitch about stupid stuff, and it makes you remember the kid that was eating flies, or thinking that you're looking through your night vision and you're thinking, how do they get blacktop all the way out here in the desert, to find out it's blood running through the sand 3 feet wide and 6 inches thick. And you get up through the thicket, find there's a pile of bodies with their heads cut off and the arms missing, and they've all been whacked with machetes because the Hutus and the Tutsis are fighting each other. And you're listening to this lady in Starbucks bitch about her coffee's not right, and it makes you go into the tree line because you want to choke the snot out of these people. So how do you come back and re-engage with society and become back part of the herd when you don't go back to sleep after you've woken up? After you've seen the things you've seen and gone the places you've gone, God almighty, you come back here and you just want to hug America and the resources that we have and how great this country is. And you want everybody to get on the bus and go where you went so they get it too.
They just prescribe you all these medications that, they think it's a one-size-fits-all type of deal. And, everyone has different issues. And I don't think that, for me at least, I felt worse while taking all of those pills. And I don't take any pills now and I feel great, you know. So
Yeah, that whole thing. Two little letters that make your head spin. It's unfortunate that it's broken the way it is because there's good people in the VA who really try every day that end up getting burned out. But it's this white elephant that wasn't ready for the new generation of soldiers. They were used to handing pills out to old guys, you know, World War II veterans and Korean guys and all that. Now we got guys coming home like back in Vietnam days with 20 years old and legs missing and need help, and pills aren't going to fix it.
yeah, I think that, you know, there'll be people that'll get something for free and then they'll look at it and say, well, it could be better, you know, and I'm just grateful that they're giving it to me. So
The VA is run by bureaucrats. A bureaucrat has a whole different way of looking at the world. Their accomplishments, your way of valuing your day, your accomplishments have nothing to do with actual people, okay? And the VA is run by bureaucrats. And their numbers are their accomplishments, their way of measuring their self-worth is bureaucratic.
They're not all the same, but most of them do give this aggrandized vision of war. And even the really gnarly ones, there's always like the hero soldiers, and you know they're like Rambo or something. They're just badass, and they can go and do anything. And it's really giving this false image of go to war, be glorious. It's all amazing. Fight the enemy, and it's not. It's all complicated and dirty, and I think it can cause a lot of people to rush into something they're not ready for.
Yeah, I think this is another case of a double-edged sword, if you will, of, in one sense, military movies are really important because it provides a personal window into some of the intensity or some of the issues happening in our world and that soldiers experience. And that's good, because otherwise it's off in the distance. It's not something that's part of people's reality. To recognize that we're still a country at war, service members abroad in combat zones, but not having a palpable sense of what that looks like for people. At the same time that it can humanize the difficulty people experience, it can dehumanize the difficulty that people experience because it's exciting, it's dramatic, it's in a movie, and it romanticizes things that, not that there aren't notions of courage and service and community that happen in those circumstances, but romanticizing things that shouldn't be romanticized and glorified.
I think in the movies, military are lionized. They're kind of glorified. I think people go to those movies because it's a little bit voyeuristic. It's a peek into what life might be like a little bit. It's an escape when we go to the movies to see those things.
I remember they made a movie about them called The Flying Tigers, because that's essentially what they were known as. It came out in about 43 or 44. So I saw it, I would have been 44, I would have been 6 years old. And that was one of those images that when you're a kid, there's a war on, and you see the heroes, and these guys were heroes, essentially. My working definition of a hero is one who risked his life for another. That's what a hero does. So these guys were that, and they were an interesting collection of guys. So they were my heroes from the time I was about 6 years old and wanted to be a fighter pilot was because of these guys.
I think that Hollywood definitely glorifies war, especially how they sell patriotism to young adults, especially teenagers in high school. I mean, nowadays it seems like there's even war or the military associated with, different superhero videos and stuff. And I don't know, it almost sells this idea of, if you put on this uniform, you're representing your country. And I mean, to an extent you are, but there's a lot more that goes into wearing that uniform and what you're doing to other people.
I look at it as entertainment. When I see say a war movie or something like that, some parts of it's true, some of it's BS, and the rest of it is glorified, But you have to take that all in consideration. You look at it as entertainment, and if you take it for gospel, you'll probably it'd be led down the wrong road.
When you create an abstraction, like a war movie or a video game or a toy gun, that abstraction becomes your reality. And when you have that fake reality, the sickening, sick consequences of a firearm, of a weapon, the thud of a bullet into flesh, the explosion, the smell of flesh, of blood. And I see military guys, I see policemen playing these stupid games, and it makes me sick at my heart. This is so unreal, and these people are living in a fantasy world. And if they ever had to deal with the real thing, okay, then their life would be a lot different.
I mean, I love movies, man, and I think there's some great war movies out there that are like so off of what the military really is, and it doesn't bother me any. And I mean, there's movies out there that have been like not spot on, but like there's only so much you can do for Hollywood. Like you're not like legalities pretty much, but there've been some really good ones out there that I was like really impressed with. There's some that I will watch only once and not watch again, just because it hits too close to home kind of thing.
I don't see war movies. I don't watch them. I used to watch a lot of them. It was really cool, watching the warplanes and dive bombers and Marines taking the beach and all that John Wayne stuff. And now not so much, because it's like these guys that showed up in Iraq, Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia and wherever. They get off the bus and they're all fired up and ready to go, and they've been trained to go do their job. And they come out of a firefight and all of a sudden it's not fun anymore. They got their buddy's brains on their chest and they were still blinking and can't figure out what the hell that was all about. Because the stuff they show in the movies isn't what happens. How do you make them understand that this guy's got tears running down his face because of what he felt, saw, and tasted when he was over there? And how do you sit in a movie theater and watch something on a screen and feel those feelings? It's a very hard thing to do. So they embellish things, they change things, they get people to come buy a ticket to make some more money. And that's just contrary to helping guys get better when they come home.
So I grew up in an aviation intense area where you saw a lot of stuff being built. I got tours when I was 7 years old through aircraft factories where my mother was working. So the air was permeated with war. That town went 24/7, never shut down. The aircraft factories ran around the clock for years on end. So I was kind of programmed into a military outlook on life, essentially. And growing up in that neck of the woods, my dream from the time I was about 7 was to be a fighter pilot. But that was not to happen because my eyes weren't good enough. I'd had some damage in one eye from a brilliant rock fight when I was a kid, you know. So when I graduated from high school, I decided that since I couldn't be a fighter pilot, that what I would do would help build the aircraft that they flew. So my first job was in aerospace at 18 years old.
I have never had any particular interest in military service, nor do I think I will. Part of that includes I've been blessed with a number of interests and opportunities, and I've been able to grow into my passions in terms of education and service and in different areas of my life.
Yeah, knowing myself more, no, I don't think so. There was a time when I thought that would be a good decision, but knowing who I am as a person, I don't think that I would thrive.
I actually considered it when I was a senior in high school, believe it or not, because I was sufficiently impressed by a Marine whom I had met, and I thought I would like to do this too. And there were classmates going off to West Point, and I thought I'd like to do that. There seems to be a lot of honor and responsibility and discipline in that, and I have an appreciation for that. I can do that too, and I opted not to because I was afraid. I was afraid of the physical discomfort of the adjustment from a private life to the military, to the rigors of military life, or whatever I think they are. So I didn't do that. That may account for why I feel the way I do towards those who do go ahead and join. You've done what I wasn't able to do.
I've thought about it occasionally. Probably not. I don't think I'd really like it. Do that well. There's a couple of branches I could see myself in, but I don't have a huge need to be in combat.
Yeah, triggers are a big thing with PTSD especially. So the human body has been designed over centuries to survive. And the primal skills that have been hardwired into your brain, the amygdala specifically, is a portion of your brain that controls fight or flight syndrome. And it's a safety device. It's security, it's survival. So physiologically, the changes that happen when you get scared is like watching a horse. A horse will just bolt, take off, gone. And then they get out there a couple 100 yards and they'll do a little circle and start snorting and dancing and breathing hard. And then they kind of breathe and calm down. It's a little bit different in humans. Your stomach gets upset, you get nauseated, 9 times out of 10 you throw up. The intent physiologically is to dump your stomach so you can run, the flight syndrome. You start to sweat because your body needs to cool down. Your muscles tense up and you get this big dump of adrenaline. Because adrenaline burns really fast and you get stronger and your muscles get stronger and you need to cool all that down, so you start to sweat. Then your heart rate ramps up. And it's pumping fresh oxygen to the rest of your body because you're getting ready to run. And all those signals inside are saying, dude, this is bad, let's get out of here. Your heartbeat kicks up and then your respiration rates kick up and your eyes dilate because you got to take in more light and see more things, and it's all this fear factor. All that happens in a split second because you smelled something or some flash of light or whatever. So in the military, through all the training we go through, we teach soldiers not to run away. You fight that flight instinct and you turn into a monster. The rage comes out and you fight. You go after whatever it is that scared you and you kill it. So you get done doing that a whole bunch of times, and now you've got this ramped up, it's like lifting weights with one arm. You got one side of your primal system that's just ramped up, ready to rock at a moment's notice. And you leave the environment where you need that, and you come back to Fort Living Room, And now the same things happen, whether it's 4th of July and somebody's popping fireworks, or diesel fuel because you've been around jet planes and Hummers and all that. It triggers these primal mechanisms that you associate with where you were and the danger you were in. And all those physiological things happen again. The adrenaline dumps. You get sick to your stomach. Your muscles pump up. You're ready to just kill something. That's a PTSD episode from hell because there's nothing going on. And consciously, it doesn't make any sense that you're reacting this way. But subconsciously, your brain is telling you, and you can't physically make the differentiation between reality and what your body's telling you. So there's this huge conflict. So if you walked up on a guy that was having a PTSD episode, what would it look like to you? Like, holy shit, call the cops. Now we're off to the races. Because the cops are going to show up to protect everybody else and prove who's in charge and put you in cuffs to make sure nobody else gets hurt. And now we got a problem. Because everything in your body is telling you to fight. And he shows up with sirens, and the noise makes you nuts, and flashing lights, and getting ugly with you, telling you what to do and what not to do, and pulling the taser. And so is this guy just an asshole that needs his ass kicked? Or is he in PTSD from combat? And to the cop, it doesn't matter. We're going to fix this problem. So here we go. So if he does the same thing in front of his wife, is he going to be charged with domestic violence? Or are they going to go, oh, he was in Ramadi, I get it. Oh, this guy was in Fallujah, I get it. They're not going to get it.
There's a step between high school and getting a 9 to 5, getting married, having a job, having responsibilities, and you don't learn those things overnight. Military was that little space in between it takes to get your feet on the ground. It was a blessing for me. It really was, because I went to school in Berkeley, graduated Berkeley. I would have probably still been working in Berkeley. The only thing I did do after I got out of the service was I did sort of come back home, But I came back home with a whole new attitude on life is what it was. But I still got back home, but home is home, so it's always going to be there.
I think that by glorifying war, it makes people want to wear a uniform thinking that they're going to do a lot for their country, when in fact, if they actually wanted to help their country, they can look at different ways of doing that by, probably even feeding the homeless, or, cleaning up, cleaning up the park, or trying to figure out different ways of helping the community, because, we're leaving our communities in order to go and serve our country.
Just, they don't get it, and it's a frustration of trying to explain that to them, but they're not going to understand. They
Right.
can't understand, because I didn't understand until I went overseas and saw that.
Right.
And then you see that wastefulness, and you go, no wonder people, I got a chance to see how the world perceives Americans. We were at a bar having a couple drinks, and there's people loud, just loud and obnoxious behind us. Like, who the hell are these people? We're just American tourists.
Right.
But how the rest of the world, and how the Brits and everybody else, it was kind of an expat bar, kind of looked at these people, and I went, shit, that's how the world sees us.
People walk by and say, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, hey, it's way better than Baghdad today. And they look at me like, huh? I'm on a mission to wake people up too. But you can't go over and kick them in the ass and go, hey! Because then they go, So you drop little seeds and hope they grow. That's all you can do. There's a lot of people out there that are very comfortable with just saying thank you for your service and going on with their life because they don't want to know. And there's a lot of guys that really need some help. And I'm not saying we're special, because this generation, this is what, everybody who's been in the service and gone down range and done things from the initial cavemen's with clubs, I've had the same problem. World War II guys, Vietnam guys, Same thing with Iraq and Afghanistan and everything in between. Everybody, it's the same template across the board. And until people like you, the new generation coming up, does things like this with your video, the rest of the herd's not going to get it. They're not going to understand.